the Regional Municipality of York Police Services Board for Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. On behalf of the board, I'd like to acknowledge the land we are meeting on today is traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Chippewas of Georgina Island and the Mississaugas of the Credit. These lands are now home to many diverse Indigenous people. We also acknowledge York Region falls under Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty with several Mississauga and Chippewas First Nations. I would move to item 2 and ask if there's any disclosure of interest at this time. Seeing none, I will move to the confirmation of the public minutes for March the 24th, 2021. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Ms. McCullough, Chair Emerson, all those in favor? And that's carried. We have no presentations today. We have no deputations. We're down to correspondence, item 6. And the first is 6.1, communication from Dr. Aubrey Zettenberg. Are there any questions on that item? Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Okay. Ms. Fang, Mr. Purchell, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Next item is communication as well from Christopher Rayner, Regional Clerk, York Region, dated March 31st, 2021. Yes. Thank you, Chair Emerson. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll move the motion just to receive for the communication, but I'm going to advise the board and the York Regional Police that probably in May or I'm hoping in May, but may not come to June. Staff will bring a report back to council regarding looking at what the number is going to be going forward for 2022. I'm feeling and understanding from a lot that they are going to be looking at a 0% increase for 2022. So if that's the case, we have to find probably between $20 and $30 million to keep that to go to a zero-base budget. And if that's the case, everybody's going to take a hit, everyone, because it's not just going to be transportation or environmental services. It's going to be all departments and all programs in York Region. The other caveat that we're going to have, and we're hoping that the province will stay good to this, is to cover our mass immunization centers. We're probably getting close to $100 million spent on the mass immunization. And what that says to say, if we don't, we're in dire needs if the province does not come through at the end of the year, because it's going to be over 100 million. So just so you all aware, the region's doesn't want to go this way. I really believe we need to continue what we've been doing. We were very fortunate to get good support on the leadership of Mayor Babalacqua being the chair of finance and admin, and we got the 1.54% in 2021. But going forward, these are going to be challenging times, and it seems that I wouldn't say not the majority, but some of the members could be swayed. So just so I'm giving you a heads up, Jeff, going forward, so you understand, and Chief, you understand this is where we're going to be at ongoing forward. But the bigger issue is the mass immunization. It's a huge number, and we're hoping and that the province and the federal government will come through to cover all our costs. But the bottom line is they never ever cover all our costs. Going forward, this has been a long year and a half or more that we've been going through this pandemic. It's been affecting your regional police, but it's been affecting a lot of people on this, and so we can see it, but we're not out of the woods yet. We'll get everyone vaccinated, but that's still they're now coming out of it. What's going to happen with businesses and residents and school children going that way? So anyways, Madam Chair, I'll move the receipt. I just thought I would be, because it's there as part of the budget, but I have to be cautious, and you may get the call from the treasurer saying, we better look to find out how we can find I think it's around 25 to 30 million, I think, if I try to find 1.554%. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mayor Bevilacqua, would you move that, or sorry, second that motion, please? You're muted.
Yes, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Mhm.
And that is carried. We are at item 7, items for consideration, reports of the chief. Go ahead, chief.
Morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the board. Nice to see you all. This is a report to the board requesting a disbursement from the Public Relations Fund for First Responders Day Luncheon. The board has supported this in the past, in the previous 2 years, and we're asking once again if it can be supported by the board for First Responders Day once again this year, which we are going to host a number of luncheons with our entire staff throughout the region. All of the deputies and myself will be part of that. And this is an excellent way throughout a challenging time for the board to also show the support to our members and thank them for the work they're doing, because they are working hard out in the field to do their part throughout this COVID emergency. So in saying that, that's the report and the request to the board. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
Unless
you.
there's any questions.
Questions of the chief? I'm not seeing any. Ms. Fang?
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Jim. I completely support this. I'm just wondering, practically, is it going to be in-person luncheon, or how do we
We have
organize it in a way still in compliance with public health measures?
Yeah, it's completely in compliance with public health measures. We're going out into the field with the food and the activities, and the deputies and myself are going to be out completely, safely distanced and in compliance. So we have a complete plan and with a timetable, and it's been vetted through our COVID response team and made sure that we're completely in adherence to the public safety measures. So.
And this is different from the usual traditional, the chief's Christmas lunch, right?
Completely different. Yeah, this is, as you know, we publicly gathered in that space. That's not happening this time. It's essentially a grab and go type situation where there's limited contact between anyone. So.
Okay. Thank you. I'll move it, Virginia.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Could I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Mr. Purchell? Thank you very much. All those in favor? That's carried. Go ahead, Chief, 7.2.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. This is our annual use of force annual report. We normally report to the board on. What I will note in this report, it's the first time, if you may recall, January 1st of 2020, all police services were required to report race-based data in relation to our use of force. And this is the first report to our police services board that contains some of that information. I'm going to turn it over to Deputy De Silva. And as you can see, we have Superintendent Ty Trung here from our corporate development area, who is quarterbacking a lot of the information contained within the report, and they can provide further details to you. So Deputy, over to you.
Well, thank you, Chief, and good morning all. And through you, Madam Chair, I would like to introduce Superintendent Ty Trung, the officer in charge of our corporate development, which includes professional development and our Training and Education Bureau, to provide an overview of the 2020 annual use of force report.
Thank you, Chief and Deputy. Good morning, Chair Haxon, Vice Chair Bevilacqua, Chairman Emerson, and members of the board. And through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to briefly highlight some areas from the 2020 use of force annual report, and then answer any questions that may arise. Firstly, I'd like to draw your attention to page 2 in relation to the mandatory reporting requirements. When officers are required to submit ministry standard use of force reports, there are generally 4 incidents that trigger mandatory reporting. When an officer uses their firearm, when they use a weapon other than a firearm, when they apply physical force and results in injury requiring medical attention, or when they utilize the conducted energy weapon, otherwise known as a CEW or a taser. If you can refer to page 3, figure 1, use of force incidences versus total interactions. In 2020, there were 473,969 police interactions with the public. From those interactions, there were 189 incidents that resulted in use of force, or 0.04% of all police interactions involved mandatory use of force reporting. For clarity, a use of force incident is an occurrence, event, or interaction with the public that generates mandatory use of force reporting. A single use of force incident could generate multiple use of force reports. Each individual officer applying force is required to submit their own use of force report. Therefore, as shown in figure 1, although there were 189 use of force incidents last year, there were 356 use of force reports. This is a decrease from the previous year. If you can refer to page 5, figure 3, last year, 94.8% of all use of force reports were submitted by frontline uniformed officers. This includes emergency response and support units. Almost all use of force incidents occur with our frontline officers. I'd like to draw your attention to page 9, figure 6, incidents with armed subjects. Last year, out of the 189 incidents involving force, in 62 of those incidences, officers encountered subjects who were armed with either an edged weapon, a firearm, or other weapon. If I could have you turn to page 12, figure 8, there were 63 incidents where the taser was used by frontline officers or members of the emergency response unit. The chart illustrates how effective this less lethal force option is. In the majority of applications, officers only had to display the taser to reduce the intensity of the conflict or gain compliance. I'll now ask you to turn to page 18, figure 13A. For the first time ever, as of last year, under the Anti-Racism Act, all police services in Ontario are now required to collect data on the perceived race of those subjects involved in use of force incidents. For clarification, officers must report what they believe the race of the subject was at the time force was applied. The reporting does not take into account what race the subject identifies with. It is what the officer believed the subject race to be. Race groups are categorized by the ministry into 7 categories as seen in figure 13A, and officers can only select one of those categories listed by the ministry. This was the first year where this data was collected. Business intelligence and analytics are now being implemented to assist in data collection, to help inform training, and to help inform the organization. In conclusion, last year there were significantly low incidents of use of force. This speaks to the ongoing training of our officers, where there is a heavy emphasis on de-escalation training and dealing with persons in crisis. Subject to any questions, Madam Chair, these are some highlights from the 2020 annual use of force report.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Questions? Ms. McCullough and Chair Emerson. Ms. McCullough first, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am interested in finding out what is a perceived race? How do you perceive a race of a person?
Yes, ma'am. That is left up to the individual officer. And these are guidelines as set out by the ministry, that the ministry only categorizes or lists 7 races that the officer has to select and report to the ministry on what that officer believed that subject, where that subject fit within those 7 categories. And again, it's not where the subject or who the subject, how the subject identifies. It's what the officer perceived at the time.
So I would think that that would be problematic. It is very difficult to look at a person and say, I perceive you to be a white person or an Aboriginal person. So I think that collecting data that way might not really reflect in the long run an accurate count of a race-based data. I know it's been done for a long time in different ways, because each person identify themselves very differently than is perceived. Is that correct?
That's correct, ma'am. And these are areas that we're fully aware of, but these requirements are set as guidelines from the ministry. And what I can tell you is that these issues or these areas have been brought forward to the ministry. There is a working group that we are a part of with respect to the data collection and this specific electronic form. So these issues have been brought forward to the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and that is ultimately is up to the ministry to direct us on what to collect.
Thank you.
Chair Emerson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ty. It's a great report, and a lot of time and effort went into it. I think Ms. McCullough has hit the nail on the head about the perception of what it is. But I mean, we can only ask the province of Ontario to look at their guidelines and provide us the direction that they want us to go on this. I don't know if we could change anything like of that magnitude. So I can continue. Hopefully, you'll continue to do that to push to find out more criteria that we can actually have a better understanding. Madam Chair, it's in the recommendation is that the board receive this report. Is that it? Like it just stays in our coffers? It doesn't go anywhere else? We don't send it to the province? It's not something that's open to anyone else? I guess that's what I just don't know. It's good to receive the report, but I mean, who else sees it, or do they go on our website to see it?
Ms. Alito?
Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chairman Emerson. Yes, we will post it on our website. If you go to our website, there is a menu just on use of force. So we have all the reports from previous years. We have the board's policy on use of force and an explanation as well in there. So we will add this report to that list, and it's a menu. It's right on our top.
But since the province is asking for this, I believe, and they want us to do this, so why would we not send it to them? I'm just asking. Has it ever been done before? I assume I thought I read somewhere that we have to do this, like it's a regulation. So why would I guess that's my only comment. To do something like this, it takes a lot of time and effort, and it's good that we do this report. However, just to receive it, it just goes on our website, but I'm not sure how many people are going to go there. So I guess I'm just asking, Madam Chair, do we send it to anyone else, or does it just go on the shelf, on the top shelf on the website?
We don't usually forward it to anyone unless there is a requirement. And I don't think in this case, given the change to the regulation of collecting race-based data, I'm not sure that now we have to, maybe Jason could address that for you, Madam Chair. But we certainly can. We certainly can. There's nothing precluding us.
Mr. Fraser, go ahead, please.
Yes, ma'am. I can indicate that all of these statistics are provided by the police service to the province as part of Ontario's anti-racism strategic plan. And then that data is actually published in an annual report as part of Ontario's anti-racism strategic plan.
So Jason, it does go somewhere. It does go.
In addition to us providing it to the board, it's provided to the province, and the province in turn publishes their statistical analysis on a provincial basis.
Okay, so you don't, over the years, you don't need direction to do that. It's just automatic.
It's part of the regulatory framework.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Ms. Fang? Is that a question, or you're moving?
Can I ask a quick question, please? It's
Certainly.
actually relating to the perceived race. I'm wondering if there's any legal or regulatory constraint to our frontline officers when they interact with the public, as they ask for, I only use traffic incident. When our officer asks for identification, are we not allowed to ask for the ethnic background?
Superintendent?
So ma'am, the purpose of collecting this data as per the regulations and the act is to identify, monitor, and address potential racial bias, if any, or profiling. So the collection, or the, if I can put it this way, it's what the officer perceived the race of the subject to be prior to force being applied. So I could, and I completely understand everybody's questions here, because I can perceive an individual in one of the categories as white, and my partner could perceive the individual as Asian. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter that the individual is Latino or identifies as Latino. The statistics, the data is being collected so that the province can analyze and have a bigger picture provincially on what is happening on the road and the officer perception of those subjects. So for sure it's a gap, because two officers can identify that subject to be in two different categories as outlined by the ministry, and that actual subject could actually not fit in either one of them. So this has been brought forward to the ministry, and they're aware of it. And I also know that the working group that to help inform the ministry that this is the first time this data is being collected, and I believe, and it's my understanding that the electronic submission form is going to be changed. So I can't comment on how the ministry is actually using that data. We can only conform and ensure that we comply to what the ministry standard is.
Maybe I can add a comment in here too. I think you get a sense yourselves as well as us, the complexity of an issue like this in trying to conform within the parameters of what's been delivered to the police service and the board through the ministry when you're only given certain options. But what I wanted to leave you with as well, unless there's any other questions, is we are going to do, nothing precludes us as a police service to do a deeper dive into those data, those individual areas of data, and do a better job internally ourselves. And this is where business intelligence from a technology standpoint is going to really serve us well in the next year. And hopefully when we see this report and this, hopefully, well, it will be a presentation next year, because it'll be a new look at how we further broaden these categories and we'll still comply with whatever the ministry provides to us, but we'll be able to do a better job ourselves internally to do a deeper dive into this data. And that's the intent in the next year, to start moving in that direction and take whatever changes will come through the ministry. So.
Ms. Fang, go ahead.
Thank you, Jim. I think that's great. And I feel the regulatory compliance tend to be the bare minimum level. And as you comment, we want to do better than what's required. That's excellent. Thank you. And just a related question, just independence of preparing reports. In our day-to-day operation, are our officers allowed to ask for ethnic background question?
So,
Go ahead, Paula. Go ahead.
So through you, Madam Chair, there are, in the use of force reporting, there is no requirement in terms of officers to ask for ethnicity or background.
Thank you. Ms. Fang, does that answer your question?
No requirement by the regulation. Perhaps this is where Jason, our legal colleague, can help. Like, are we allowed? Is this any concern of privacy or human rights? Can we ask this question in our day-to-day operation?
Good morning again, Madam Chair, and good morning, Ms. Fang. There's nothing legally that prevents us from asking the question, but there are risks associated with it, and so it really isn't a simple answer. Risks in terms of the percentage of people that actually, because we have to make sure people understand that they don't have to answer the question. We're not compelling people to give us that information. So depending on how many people provide that information, that's going to affect the quality of the data. The other issue is the impact that asking that question has on the dynamic and the relationship between the officer and the individual, because that's the part where I think this area of the law continues to struggle, is that there are some people who think we should be asking the question. There are other people in those situations who think that we shouldn't be asking the question, and they actually get offended by it. So I think this is one of the reasons why the focus has been on the perception of the officer, because at the end of the day, especially in this area of statistical research, we're looking at how the officer's perception impacts their ultimate decision-making when it comes to using force. And the reality is it's not the actual race of the individual that guides that officer's decision-making, it's that officer's perception of that race. And I think that's where the focus is at this stage.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. I understand the risk and concern, but I think in the real world, of course, you don't just go and ask, what is your racial background? I think just by adding a context of that question, we are collecting data to help improve diversity, inclusion, or to prevent racial profiling. People will understand, then say, yeah, this is, rather than just blankly ask something. So it's a bit of a communication. But anyway, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Purcell, did you have a question?
Oh, Your Worship, thank you.
Thank you. I have this moved by Chair Emerson. Ms. Fang, will you second this motion? Thank you very much. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, Superintendent. Well done. Go ahead, Chief.
Madam Chair, 7.3, this is our annual report on hate crime. And I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Hammond to introduce the report. And as you can see, we have Superintendent Ricky Verapan with us today, who was part and parcel to preparing this report and provide some context of it. Cecile? You're muted.
My apologies. Thank you, Chief, and good morning, everybody. So this report is an annual report that we provide to the board, and it goes without saying that York Regional Police is committed to advancing an organization that's culturally sensitive and responsive to the diversity of its citizens. Our hate crime prevention unit engages its members and the community in hate crime prevention programs and support of promoting principles of human rights, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This unit continually monitors global events, recognizing that these events can have an impact on the community. And by doing so, it contributes to the most appropriate responses when addressing the community's concerns. In Canada, hate and bias crime reporting rates are generally low. The table included within this report provides a breakdown of the region's hate crime statistics for 2020, and the principal motivation breakdown in the chart, though that breakdown is provided by Statistics Canada. You'll note that in 2020, we had 160 hate crime occurrences compared to 133 in 2019. We have recorded an increase in hate crime occurrences against the East and Southeast Asian communities, the Black community, Indigenous people, and the Arab and West Asian population. I'll note that of the 19 hate crimes against the East and Southeast Asian community, all were directly related to COVID-19. Although we do encourage the reporting of hate crimes and hate incidents, some members of our community are reluctant to file reports. The Hate Crime Prevention Unit has developed very innovative methods to encourage the reporting of hate, including a variety of community engagement, partnership, and education initiatives, which includes a new program which we've called Building Partnership within New York Region. This initiative involves delivering hate crime education, training, and awareness for all York Region municipalities. This program was successful in that it saw over 200 employees from various region departments trained on how to address hate crime and encourage reporting. What I am going to do now is I will turn it over to Superintendent Veerpan to give a brief overview of some of our other initiatives.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Deputy. I'm going to just speak a little bit about some of the hate crime prevention work that's, in fact, I'll start off with the hate crime prevention work specific to COVID-19 racism that we've been doing over the past year since actually monitoring it from January 2020. So we've had officers monitoring social media to correct misinformation, because there's a lot of misinformation about reporting hate crime and some of the trends and patterns in hate crime. We've had officers connect with ethnic media, particularly some of the East and Southeast Asian media organizations like Tsingtao, Mingpao, creating other outlets to encourage reporting through engagements in various communities. We've been working with our corporate communications branch at York Regional Police to ensure consistent messaging. We've had messaging done with our officers in Cantonese as well as Mandarin in some of the Chinese media radio programs. Collaborations with our intel unit with some of the broader implications of hate and how it impacts communities. We've initiated contact last year with our hate crime extremism investigation team, of which York Regional Police is a member, just bringing it to their attention and trying to understand the impact of COVID-19 racism against East and Southeast Asian communities across the province and even beyond Ontario. And since then, we've connected the HCEIT, the Hate Crime Extremism Investigation Team, with the Chinese and Southeast Asian Legal Clinic of Ontario. And we've had extensive conversations with them, as well as exploring opportunities to work together in gathering hate crime statistics, in having some of their clients who live in York Region reported to York Regional Police, but also have them assist us with presentations for the community. We've had internal messaging and training and awareness programs for our frontline officers and investigators, just to ensure and enhance our report taking. As you know, we prosecute hate to the full extent of the law within York Region, so that has been continuing. We've done community education programs through the 5 welcome immigrant welcome.
Ms. McCullough, I think your microphone is on.
Okay. I did something. I'm not sure what it is.
Just lift your speaker. Lift that above your head till you speak, Norma. Lift that up. Go higher. Go up higher. Go up higher. Then you won't hear. We won't hear what you're saying. Keep going up. Push your thing. That's it. Now you're good.
Thanks.
Sorry, Ricky.
That's okay. Thank you. We've done engagement through all of the welcome centers, and you may know that within the welcome centers, we have a number of different newcomers to the region, many from East and Southeast Asian communities with many different language needs as well. So we've been engaged there. We've also connected with the Canadian Multicultural Association, which is a group that we've worked with for a number of years, and an organization that represents 23 different Asian countries, including many from East and Southeast Asia. We've had members of York Regional Police Hate Crime and Diversity Unit attend and pay particular attention to the Wuhan restaurant, the focal point of all of some of the very nastiness that we've witnessed in York Region. Having lunch at that restaurant and also following up with the owners of that restaurant just to ensure their safety, security, and their well-being. We've also hosted events over the past year at the Community Safety Village, which really focus on bringing Asian youth together to share their stories and perspectives and to help us understand the impact of COVID-19 racism on the communities. We've had connections with the Richmond Hill Markham Vaughan Chinese Business Association, and over the past few months, we've delivered a series of presentations focusing on anti-Asian racism and really building resiliency within communities, empowering people about knowing their rights and how to report those types of activities to York Regional Police. In addition to that, just to add on to what Deputy Hammond has spoken about, we've connected with 8 out of 9 municipalities in York Region for training for staff in various municipalities on how to report hate crime and connect with York Regional Police. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Mr. Purchell, then Ms. Fang.
2 specific communities, if you have any comments. Number 1, is there any data with respect to the Yazidi community in York Region? And question number 2, thoughts or comments related to the growing rise of, I use this in quotation, nationalist movements in the area?
Thank you, sir.
So sorry, Ricky, Superintendent Bearpan, I will turn that over to you. I know you have some information with respect to the Yazidi community. I will say though, categorizations of the principal motivations that divide the race and ethnicity has been divided. That's been provided by Stats Canada. But Ricky, you may have some information about the Yazidi community.
Sure. Thank you. With regards to the Yazidi community, so we've been engaging with the Yazidi community for a few years now in York Region. We've identified about 45 families that reside primarily in the Richmond Hill area. We've had a few special events in York Region, including 2 at the Community Safety Village, where we've invited Yazidi families just to have a day of just getting to understand each other and learning about the Yazidi communities. That was done pre-COVID. Last year at our hate crime conference in September of 2020, the Yazidi community human rights director was a keynote speaker to conclude our session. As all of you know, the Yazidi community were victimized by genocide and atrocity crimes and still face that type of victimization. So just to bring awareness to it, and it was done to introduce other offices in Ontario to the plight of the Yazidis. We know there's a large community in the London area, and we've been in touch with London Police Service as well, just to ensure those collaborations.
Mr. Purchell, I can just add as well on your first part of your question, or I guess the first part was the Yazidi community, but the second piece, we do monitor those trends right across the country. We have partnerships established within the RCMP and within the broader intelligence community as well. So we don't see, at least here in the York Region, an uptick in that area, but I will let Brian, perhaps, if Brian has any further comments on that, on our monitoring, but that sort of addresses that piece, Brian.
Absolutely, Chief, and you're 100% correct. YRP does monitor all movements, whether it's far right, far left, pro or anti-regime, whether it's here in Canada or outside. We do that here at YRP within our intelligence community. Also with our partner agencies here in Ontario, across Canada, we participate in a weekly conference call and our reporting system within Ontario, as well as nationally, we participate in the intelligence Additionally, we are looped directly in with what's happening in the USA. We are part of the Major City Chiefs Association, and within that association, there is a group of intelligence officers right across the US and right across Canada reporting in to all of us the various movements, protests that are taking place in each and every city, those that are of concern and or those that I would say potentially could be of concern or persons of interest. So there really is a very strong attention and focus to ensure the safety right across North America. But specifically, I can confirm and hopefully bring some comfort to the board and to the community that YRP is engaged in all of these conversations.
Thank you. Mr. Purcell, you're comfortable with your answers?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Bevilacqua, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. I think that, we should really look at this and congratulate the team for putting this together. I think it's very thorough. You have many items here and subject matters that you're dealing with. Of course, with all this, what is really important is the follow-up and to find out how well we are doing. And perhaps I missed it here, but will we be getting update reports or reports on how well we are doing with all these issues? I mean, it's quite comprehensive, and you've hit. I can't think of anything you missed. You've got everything here. It's 43 points here that are that really kind of embrace the challenge that we face. I also like the fact that you consulted quite extensively, and that's very important. I guess in this area of policing, as generally speaking, and we face it in government as well, it's establishing sort of common ground and common language and common understanding. I think that's been a major challenge in the community. But I do think that you've developed here a plan and a toolkit that can really take us to a real special place in race relations. And so I just wanted to thank you for the excellent work you have done, and also for how thorough you were and how incredibly precise and you were in addressing the key issues as I know them to be in this area. And so more than a question, it's more of a comment, Madam Chair, to just express my gratitude, but also to make sure that we have follow-up documents in the future that clearly address our progress.
Thank you very much. Ms. Fang, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Virginia. I have no question, just a quick comment, please. Just want to thank Cecile and Ricky and the team in resolving and preventing hate crime, and especially in the last year with this COVID-19 related. Lots of press coverage, but I don't see anything regarding York Region, not even Ontario. BC and Vancouver did have several times got on CBC on this subject. So kudos to the team. And the prevention through education and community engagements are wonderful. Actually, about 2 weeks ago, I got a notice from a local Chinese community about a hate crime prevention Zoom seminar. So I was actually interested in joining. However, as I click on, it needs password and registration, and I didn't have all that. So it was pity I wasn't able to join that. But I'm just wondering, follow up, and it's important to help us with continuous improvement and engagement. I'm wondering with this Zoom seminars, what is our, do we always require registration? I understand that we can control a bit of the audience, but at the time when the seminar starts, perhaps we could consider opening it up to the public so we'll have more participation. Perhaps sometimes people just signing last minute depending on how the schedule pans out. So we'll be interested in hearing next time around the turnout of those seminars, please.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions. Mayor Bevilacqua, would you move this for us, please? Thank you. And Mr.
Sure, I will
Purcell?
do that. Thank you.
Mr. Purcell, second that. Thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, staff. Excellent report. We're at 7.4, and that's eradicating racism and strengthening public trust and confidence in policing.
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, Madam Chair, through you, you will recall, this is a very lengthy report because of the attachments. So I'll give you the highlights here in terms of how we got here and where we're going. As you'll recall, back in July of 2020, yourself, Madam Chair, the Vice Chair of the day, and our Executive Director had a virtual meeting with some leaders within the Black community. And there was follow-up from that with some deputations to the board in September of 2020. And at that time, members of the Black community met with the board and provided a series of recommendations, 51 to be exact. And of those 51 recommendations, 43 were directly related and directed to our police service. And I'm happy to report today, and with some diligent work on Ricky, Superintendent Verapan's part, as well as Alicia Lozon, our inclusion specialist, and through Cecile's leadership in that area. These recommendations have been broken down into 9 specific categories. And within those categories, the Appendix A is York Regional Police's response directly to those 43 recommendations. Without getting into each one, obviously, that would take us some time. They're there for your awareness and for your review. I can open it up to any questions you might have. My recommendation would be for our Executive Director to share this report with the deputants from September of 2020, following the approval from the board of today's meeting. There were 8 specific recommendations directed to the board, and as I understand it through Mafalda, they will be prepared and responded to at a later date. However, it's very important, I think, for us to engage those deputants and let them know we've addressed them, and there's pretty concise and very clear information within each of their recommendations. And in some, the work is ongoing, and in some, there have been solutions to their recommendations. So I can also tell you many of the deputants, if not all, many, are part of our Black Community Consultative Roundtable, which we've had one meeting with already. And we will endeavor to share this information with that Black Community Consultative Roundtable at our follow-up meeting with them in May of this year as well. So unless there's any questions, Ricky, myself, or Cecile can answer. That's my recommendation, Madam Chair, is to receive the report, provide it to the deputants, and then we can specifically work with them directly as we move forward with their advice and consultation and collaboration as we're continuing to work with them now. So that's the report on eradicating racism and strengthening trust within the community.
Thank you very much, Chief. Questions? Ms. McCullough, Ms. Fang, and Mayor Bevilacqua. Ms. McCullough, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for putting this together, Chief. Certainly is a lot of work to be done, and I understand that you've already started the process. Will we be getting ongoing reports on these individual tasks? For example, I have read that the school resource officers have already been taken out of schools. or is this an ongoing process? Will you be having other consultations with the stakeholders? Following up with that question, I'm always concerned that we take all the officers out of the schools. What else are we going to do when schools start again? Is there going to be another a brand new program? How is that going to be handled?
Yeah, Ms. McCullough, I can tell you, a very live issue. I'll deal with the schools question first. It was not our decision, but in collaboration with the school board, we recognized they have a new anti-Black racism strategy and had made their decision in consultation with our members that for now, the program would be paused, both our school resource officer program and youth education officer program at the district school board. And we're having some meetings, we have meetings scheduled with the Catholic school board to discuss the same topic. I suspect we'll be in the same space on the Catholic board, although we don't have the outcome of that meeting yet. So there will be further consultation and with the board as to how we have them assist us engage youth and what our new youth engagement strategy will be. Superintendent Verapan and Inspector Provost, under the guidance of Deputy Hammond, are actively working on a new youth engagement strategy to better position YRP so we not lose the ability to engage with young people, because I think we can all agree it's extremely important work. The school board has always been a way for us to find a place to be so we could engage better. But it is what it is now, and we're going to continue to move on that. The second piece, which I think you addressed first, is will there be consultation, further consultation? The short answer, Ms. McCullough, is yes. And at those consultative roundtables, we will consult with the Black community on a regular basis. As I mentioned, many of those members were the deputants who brought these recommendations forward. So my hope and belief is that we will have some very good conversation and collaboration with members of the Black community on the outside of the organization, on the community side. I can also tell you, while we're talking about this issue around anti-Black racism and anti-racism, is that we've stood up a working group within the organization to work on the inside as well, made up of our members, sponsored by Deputy Rouse. And we've had a couple of discussions on that already, and some of that work is ongoing as well. So there's lots going on within the organization on the outside to continue moving this forward so we can address the issues at hand. So.
Thank you. As I said, as long as the board gets updates periodically of how you're actually doing with their groups. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. Ms. Fang, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Virginia. I think this is a very comprehensive study and response to the community feedback. And I see a lot of work and thoughts have been put into this. And I'm just wondering, one step back from business management and strategic development perspective for an organization, I think just how do we connect or turn the laundry list to be connected with the York Region Police diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy? Because we, from the board and the YRP perspective, of course, we always listen to our communities and our public. But at the end of the day, I feel the management and strategy should be principle driven rather than recommendation driven. Otherwise, will be running around reacting to a lot of feedback and recommendations. So this is where I feel we have to kind of lift ourselves above all the comments and recommendations. We do want to listen, but then how do we turn that and connect into at the strategic level, reflecting on, say, recruitment and talent development, community engagement, training, cultural and leadership, operational improvement. For example, these aspects of the management of the police services, because we just want to avoid being reactive, and also sometimes who cries the loudest. Again, it's the principle driven. For example, on this school resource officer, I am happen to be on the school board side on the parent engagement advisory committee. So I hear this, and yes, now we hear the feedback from one community. From the school board perspective, they also need to consult with the broader community, so then can make a decision. But for now, they cause.
I mean, just the work that that the team does and I mean, I witnessed it myself. Well, much more so when we were able to hold events. The very strong presence of the police at many events, at many conferences, and I think that an annual report of sorts, and I'm not trying to generate paperwork here at all. I think it's very important that the story be told, because there are many issues that we need to address as a police services board, and but there's also a lot of good things that you do that don't necessarily reach the community. And once you see it in a report, once you present also the evidence of all your efforts, I do think that it shows the great efforts that you are taking to make sure that these issues are addressed. So I don't know what kind of form it would take, but I do think that you have done exceptional work on reaching out to ethnocultural communities and minority groups, and that has to be reflected. That has to be shown. I mean, look, in the final analysis, this is how it works, right? You have a choice in life. You either define yourself or you let others define yourself. And I would advise that we define ourselves as an organization, and we do it in a way that really illustrates our commitment and the work that we've been doing throughout, not just this past year, but many years prior to that. But just a food for thought. You'll have to figure out how you manage this, but I do think that it's worth at least thinking about. And if you decide to go ahead with something like that, that would be, I think, quite helpful in defining our organization. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Another question.
Ms. McCullough, go ahead, please.
Very quickly, it's just a comment. The officers that were released from the schools, there are, I believe I've read that there are 27 officers. So they would be redeployed to regular duties. Is there any comment on how they actually feel about leaving the schools right now?
Deputy Hammond, do you want to answer that? I mean, I can just tell you initially, some of those officers were redeployed to our call diversion unit when COVID first hit and schools were out. We've left some of those folks there, but in terms of how they're feeling, I'll turn it over to the deputy and or Superintendent Varapan, because they speak with these officers regularly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Madam Chair. Ms. McCullough, I will make two comments. The first comment with respect to how those officers feel, to answer your question. I know they're very passionate about youth engagement, and although disappointed, they are very resilient, and in fact, throughout this pandemic, not being able to be in the schools, they've taken that opportunity to develop some engagement programs online. So they have been engaging those youth through various online platforms. And so they're ahead of the game in that it's not as though it's pencils down and they're not doing anything. They're working towards, they're continuing their engagement, and they're working towards developing that new strategy and what it'll look like moving forward. So there's a lot of room there for us to be innovative and adapt to the change. So yes, disappointed, but also positive in that they recognize that there's an opportunity here for them to engage the youth in a different capacity. So I hope that answers your question. Superintendent Virapan, did you have anything to add with regards to that?
No, Deputy, nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. We always forget that once the relationships have been forged, it's very valuable. And we have a team of very skilled, valuable men and women. So hope you can use them in other capacities. And again, as Ms. Fang said, we haven't heard from the broader community of how the parents and students feel about their interaction with police officers. We're focusing a lot on Black groups, but I think the rest of the community, the broad community, when school resumes, it would be good to know, or maybe a short survey, because of the communications that the officers are having now. Maybe online they could find out how others feel about that interaction.
Absolutely, that's a thank you for that, and that's a very good suggestion. And I'll comment on what you said about the relationship building. So a number of these officers have formed very strong relationships with some of the youth over the years, and that will continue. Youth engagement is still a priority with York Regional Police, and not being inside bricks and mortar schools will not stand in our way. We will continue to engage with these youth, and those relationships will continue. But thank you for the suggestion.
Sorry, I just need to make one comment here as well. I think we just need to be mindful of the fact that we are invited guests into the school board. We don't impose ourselves in the school board. So if the school board asks YRP to step aside based on their strategy, we work with them and adhere to what their recommendations are. So as much as I would love to survey every community in the region and have everyone come to the table and say, yes, we want our officers back in the schools, because I personally believe there is a role for officers in our schools. However, the boards have felt differently in this case. We have to be respectful of that. And that information is what, my recommendation for a school board is that's information they should be obtaining to then inform themselves if they want us in the schools. So just wanted to make that comment. It's a very live discussion. I still believe engaging with youth is extremely important, and YRP will find an opportunity to do that in a way that doesn't intrude on what their request is at this point. But we want to work in collaboration. We have a very good relationship with both boards, so that work will continue.
Right.
Thank you. Chair Emerson, you had a comment?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to echo what the chief said. Members of the board, we did not leave the school. The schools told us that we are no longer needed there. So if anybody listening on this Zoom meeting should know that it was the school boards decided not for us to be in there. And if they want to do a survey, it should be the school boards asking their public if they want us back, and they should be doing the work. In all due respect, Ms. McCullough, it's not our obligation. We were in there, we went in there, try to help, but if the school board decided not to, that's their call. And I would leave it as that. So, but thank you, Chief, for a good explanation in that, and going forward. Thank you.
Ms. Fang, go ahead.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Wayne. I completely agree with Jim and Wayne. And within school board, the consultatory, the parent community, I will advocate the same.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mayor
Madam
Bevel-
Chair, there was one question I think needed to be, sorry, I don't want to miss answering any of the questions that were raised because I knew this would have lots. There was a comment or question from Ms. Fang about the, and I just want to make sure I'm clear. So when we leave here, I have some, Ms. Fang, when you were talking about a survey, were you speaking about the Census and Inclusion Survey, or were you talking about a civilian recruitment process by the external consultant? And which survey were you speaking about?
I think it's the Census for Inclusion Survey. Last time was done in 2018, correct? So
Yeah.
we are planning to do another one. And I see the category of the races groups, which are not entirely consistent with the current York Region community composition. So I feel that should be addressed so that we have more apple to apple comparison to see how our membership reflect our communities.
Yeah, and I see Ricky taking notes. I will just tell you that we do hire a consultant to do this work. So so that piece, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on. We were talking about the Census and Inclusion Survey. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Bevilacqua, could I ask you to move this and Ms. McCullough second?
We'll do
This
that. Thank you.
recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Yep.
And that's carried. Do we have any unfinished business at this time? I'm not seeing anyone. Do we have any other business at this time? Go ahead, Chair Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to a bit of information for next board meeting. It's something I really didn't want to do, but I think we need, I have to go through with this. Mayor Haxon's last board meeting will be next month. Mayor Haxon will be leaving the board, and Mayor Pellegrini from the Township of King will be coming on the board. So Mayor Haxon, I will say more next month, but you've done a wonderful job in these difficult times, and your history on this board will always be remembered. So, but I just wanted to make sure that Mafalda, you know that we're going forward with this, and Mayor Pellegrini, not sure he may come on or not, but I'll let him decide if he wants to come on to listen in on the board meeting. And then we'll Mayor Bevilacqua will be the vice chair, and we will pick a chair and a vice chair going forward. So I just wanted the board to understand that. I'm not sure if they all realize that or not. Thank you, Mayor Haxon.
Thank you.
Maybe I can add to that, Chairman Emerson. Mayor Haxon, I'll have more to say as well, but I just want to thank you as well for your leadership and guidance and your friendship throughout these many months over the past. So we'll talk more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We certainly will talk more. With that, then, could I have a motion to convene into a private meeting for the purpose of considering confidential items pertaining to legal and personal matters in accordance with Section 35(4) of the Police Act? Moved by Chair Emerson, seconded by Ms. McCullough. All those in favor? And that's carried. We'll take a quick break while we move in. And thank you to everyone else.